Oh, I hope Ian comes back. It's
There he
too
is.
late now.
I kicked him out. Doesn't matter.
All right.
Hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 216 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast in Canada. We're recording on February 24th, 2020.
My name is Ian. I'm a hobby farmer and doomsday LARPer on Vancouver Island.
I'm Dave. I'm a competitive shooter, match director, hunter, and outdoorsman.
As always, my name is Andrew. I'll be your host. I'm a recovering libertarian, competitive shooter, firearms instructor at Ragnarok Tactical. We'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. You can find the show on the internet.
And while you're on the internet, you can check the podcast out on Facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast and Instagram at Instagram.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast.
We need your help. To support the show, visit Patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. The more you pledge, the better the rewards are. Show you're not a communist and buy a CPP t-shirt for just $19.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com's homepage and follow the link on the right. Andrew.
All right, it's time for my favorite segment. It's called What Are We Drinking? It's where I ask, what are we drinking? We're going to start with Dave. Dave, what are you drinking?
From my Tim Hortons cup, I am drinking Crown and Coke Zero. Got a
Nice. Ian?
Sadly,
Should we just...
plans got foiled again, so here we are, Daddy Uber duty again. Russian caravan tea, because that there's lots of caravan jokes to be had, but also it's pretty good for the evening.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I am also drinking Crown with one ice cube.
I had one ice cube as well. It's plenty.
One ice cube is enough. I just want it to be cold, not wet.
Well, I keep the Crown in the freezer, so it's pretty cold.
Oh.
Good to
In the
go.
process of trying to amalgamate two freezers together, so space is at a premium at the moment.
Sorry, Bane, I forgot to bring the chicken triples again, but next time.
Next. All right, let's do some news. I guess thanks to everybody that's on the YouTubes. If you're not watching the show live on Monday night, you could be doing that. Drink along at home. Don't drink while you're out other places. That would be frowned upon by the constabulary. But Big Slick says that we got to talk about the Buffalo Declaration and also Tech Frontier. And those are both in the show notes. So don't worry, we'll get to it. But first, Hockey Night in Canada. And I'm not playing the theme song because I don't want to get sued by Rogers.
Yeah, technically TSN, ESPN owns it now.
Oh, is it TSN now? Okay.
Yeah, ESPN
So,
basically. Yeah.
CBC lost the rights to this, and I honestly don't follow hockey close enough to understand how this works, but the rights to this are no longer on CBC. CBC's been running Hockey Night in Canada for 55 consecutive years.
Mm-hmm. They lost it actually last year. It's been a while now.
Okay, I thought
now
they were still on CBC last year.
Yeah, they're still on CBC, but they don't get to.
Like they're not controlling the.
They don't get the
the
broadcast. Yeah, is run by Sportsnet, which is Bell Media, so they don't get any of the money anymore. It's still broadcast on CBC on Saturday nights, but they don't get any of the money from it basically. So they shouldn't, because we hate them.
Well, and I mean, let's cancel the CBC, defund them all. So they're talking about a $2 billion loss over 12 years as a result of having lost the rights to Hockey Night in Canada.
I mean, where do they care, really? They'll just ask for another bailout and they'll get one. I mean...
Well, and I think that's worth mentioning because the CBC's principal source of income is a parliamentary grant from our federal government to the tune of $1.2 billion annually.
Man, we should start our own news group and get funded by the government to report on lies.
We're an entertainment podcast. Totally different.
Yeah, but we report the truth, so that's probably what disqualifies us from it.
Well, right. I mean, that we don't believe in the climate change. I mean, that maybe that's not fair. I don't believe in the climate change the way that Greta Thunberg tells me the climate is
Yes.
changing. How's
Exactly.
that?
Exactly.
How dare
See-
you?
Yeah. See,
How dare I indeed?
for instance, natural gas that gets shipped to China so that they can burn natural gas instead of coal is a good thing. And you see, we can't just automatically go to renewable energy like that, like Greta thinks that we can. These things they take time, and you need to have stuff in the meantime to keep you going. But
And the best part, well, the best part is there was giant coal terminals on the west coast here that supply a bunch of coal to China for their power plants. Gets shipped through the states temporarily, which avoids them having to pay carbon tax on it. So those rail lines full of coal going to China, zero carbon tax paid.
Super.
Yeah,
good for China.
That's good for us to keep paying to support China for that stuff, right? We got to supplement their or subsidize their power generation.
Well, they're busy fighting
Well,
Corona and stuff.
We are trying to talk about subsidizing the CBC, but I mean, I guess one state-sponsored media outlet is as good as another.
True.
So,
But
yeah.
I don't feel bad even in the slightest for CBC.
I don't. I can't wait till we can shut this down. Just like sell it off, privatize it, defund it. I don't care. If they can't make money selling advertising for Hockey Night in Canada and they lose $200 million a year.
Well, I mean, it's what happens when you shit all over your audience, right? You don't.
Well, maybe they should rethink their business model at this point, right?
Well, you push the liberal agenda, and you hate on, who do you think watches Hockey Night in Canada? Let's just put it that way. People that you shit all over, the people that were probably fans of Don Cherry, who you shit all over. And so you've alienated your biggest, you're probably your biggest night, your biggest cash cow of the 7 days of the week is Saturday night, and you fuck that all up. So, you reap what you sow.
Well, the part of what they were talking about with that was the overall cost to advertise was sort of being subsidized by that prime time slot with Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night. So that made advertising the other times of the week, call it more reasonably priced for advertisers. So now that they don't have that sweet spot to offset the costs on the less popular times, their overall ad pricing model had to be increased. So it's going to cost more to run ads on CBC, like for advertisers, and they're not getting the sweet prime time, like most eyeballs watching it. Right, because there's no more Hockey Night. So
yeah, nobody's watching your stupid channel because nobody cares.
So I imagine that our government is going to end up giving them significantly more money to continue operating in the future.
Yeah, at least as long as we have the current liberal government, most likely, yes.
Well, on that topic, did you guys see that Aaron O'Toole was talking about, as part of the potential bid for leadership of the Conservative Party, he's talking about defunding the CBC?
I loved it when I saw that.
I have seen that headline a couple times, yes.
I don't think I've seen anybody else really talking about that. Aaron O'Toole, and maybe, who's that former Air Force fighter jock guy? Oh, no, that is O'Toole. Never mind. I've been drinking.
One and the same.
Heaven forbid we have a party leader that actually served in the military.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we want somebody that knows how weapons work running the country. That seems needless.
Well, it just seems like there's always that leadership aspect, right? And, the States was famous for it up until Eisenhower, I guess, and then what's the end of it? But
I mean, I guess, but just having been in the military does not necessarily mean you are someone who possesses qualities of a good leader.
Well, that's true.
I guess it depends on what your resume is when you were in.
Well, and I think that's the same as anything else. Like, there's lots of crappy leaders in a lot of industries.
Mm.
Should we talk about the stock market? Because that's kind of related to industries. Rough
Yeah, you might as
transition?
well.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
No one with it.
Giver. I was gonna transition as well.
This is on the Global News Business Report. Canada's stock market is second worst performer in the world, next to Venezuela.
Ooh. Whew.
Ouch.
That's,
Man, to be in the same sentence as them, we are fucking shit.
that is harsh.
God
screwed,
damn.
guys. We are super screwed. So, I don't know if you guys follow market stuff very closely, but I think today marked a significant drop in all markets globally. Like there was downturns in every market today, which
Are
I
they
think is a
saying what
big
it's
deal.
related to, or is it more because of the coronavirus news, or?
I think it's uninformed
Supply
observer,
chain.
someone casual observer. Yeah, I think it's to do with an indirect result of coronavirus. I think it's because the Chinese economy is starting to shut down and everyone else relies on them to sell product.
Plus, I think there's some other countries that are starting to panic that are on the map as well, from what I've been gathering. Russia
Yeah.
and
Well,
Iran and some more in Europe.
it's just most of these countries are looking forward to what's going to happen when their supply chain breaks down from China, and they can see potential losses in the next quarter. So I think there's a lot of herd mentality with the stock markets,
And a lot of hedging and
a lot of panic selling
Yeah.
and everything else.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of discounted prices, and it's bound
compressing
to
and
happen.
selling.
Well,
Yeah.
most of these stock markets are emotionally based. They're not actually logic or fundamentals based, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is over a 10-year period they're talking about. I mean, it's a pretty small article.
Well, so in this particular article on the on Global, it is over a 10-year period, which is not a huge window, but it's not insignificant. Like I think that's a reasonable amount of time to look at the behavior of a stock market. Because if you're looking day to day, the changes on a daily basis are basically meaningless. Like it changes a lot day to day, but it doesn't change in significant ways from day to day. Oh, it's up 10 points, it's down 10 points. Oh, it's up 22 points. Oh, it's down 100. Like,
but I'd like to also see like an actual year over year of this 10 years. I would be willing to bet that the first 5 years are probably pretty good under the Harper government, and then
the other thing to remember is what
falling off.
was 12 years ago, because we've seen some fairly significant growth, but like that's also coming out of the worst recession in my lifetime and probably yours, Dave.
Yeah, probably. Oh, I mean, they were saying it was the worst since the Great Depression. I mean, it wasn't obviously not nearly as bad, but it's basically the worst recession hit we've had since the 30s.
I'm not entirely convinced of that. I think that there might be
I know
like
the
some
80s
70s oil stuff that that's what I'm thinking. Like there might be.
There's the oil embargo, and then the 80s were pretty rough in the beginning, and then
90s had the dot-com as well, but the dot-com is smaller than 2008.
The dot-com was smaller in 2008, and the other thing that they're not taking into account is that the energy crisis in the late 70s, we didn't have the level of quantitative easing that we have now. So I think that I think we are in a worse place now if you factor in for quantitative easing. But I have no empirical data that supports that. That is just like my gut reaction based on the way that they're playing with fake money, because they just keep injecting more fake money into the system. And like that's gotten significantly worse the last 20 years.
Yeah, I think basically what the lesson that could be learned from this article is socialism and stock markets don't mix.
Well, socialism and money don't mix. If I had $1 for every time socialism worked, well, I'd have no dollars, which is
you would be as broke
also
as the USSR.
How much money I would have. Well, that's how much money I'd have if socialism did work too. So,
yeah,
funny that.
It's
weird
funny
how it works out.
Funny how two oil-rich nations that practice heavy socialism still can't make their economies work. It's just amazing.
Well, and I think that's the other thing to take into consideration with this is that crude oil trading for Canadian oil is at a historic low. I don't know if it's at an all-time low, but like Canadian oil prices are at a historic low point.
We make
which I don't understand why. I mean, like I understand why. It's because we're not allowed to export our oil, or I guess more appropriately, Alberta's oil. But we have everything in place except for the infrastructure necessary to facilitate that export. I'm talking about pipelines, of course.
Ooh, scary word. Scary word.
I know, but like, if we were able to export our oil the same way that it was if Venezuela was, although they have a different problem. Theirs is not a lack of infrastructure, but rather a hostile government regime
that wants to hog all the money.
But also we're fighting U.S. shale oil too, right? Which is so they're they're not helping us right now because they'd rather sell their own oil before they buy ours, right?
Well, yeah,
and
which is why we need
I don't blame
pipelines
them
so
for
we can
that. Why
ship it,
would
right?
they? Yeah, why would you not do that? Why are we not doing that for that matter? Why are we importing Saudi oil, which you don't pay a carbon tax on and is refined by certain refineries on the East Coast that are owned by certain Laurentian elites?
Trudeau. Did
Yeah, a little bit.
I say
That's
that
what
out
I'm.
loud? Sorry.
Yeah, it's got a cough or something. You gotta
Well,
mute when you
scratch.
cough.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I got a scratch in my throat.
I
But
bet
yeah,
you're
no,
not
that's
the only
exactly
one.
why I was gonna say. I don't blame the Americans for of obviously buying America first. I just wish we did the same, like you said, right?
Well, that's my thing. Is like we have the oil. I don't know why we're paying money to a hostile foreign government who throws their gays off of buildings and doesn't let women drive and so on and so forth, and like all the other human rights atrocities that the Kingdom of Saud does. But
Yeah.
hey, we can get oil from them for relatively cheap that only occasionally leaks out of tankers and destroys the environment. We don't have to pay carbon taxes on it. We get it refined at refineries that are owned by Trudeau's family and their friends. So
It only blows up on the railways once in a while.
well, I was going to touch on that briefly. There was a derailment last week in Saskatchewan.
We did talk about it in the episode, I think, didn't we?
There's been another one since the last time we talked about it. There's been a new one.
Another one.
February it was around about Valentine's Day, February 13th, February 14th, something like that in Emo, I think is the name of the city. Going by memory, I don't have it in the show notes. And this comes on the heels of the Minister of Transportation, former astronaut Mark Garneau, having lifted the travel speed reduction that they had put on trains carrying oil products.
I feel like we just went over this. Speed bad.
Speed bad. Train derail bad. Train falling off track bad. All yes. But they due to the interruption in rail services as a result of the Wet'suwet'en protests, the transportation minister had lifted a speed reduction for certain parts of CN rail infrastructure. And I don't know if the city of Emo was necessarily affected by that or not, but I just find it an interesting coincidence, call it.
That if they listened to the show, they would have known to slow down.
Well, I mean, slow down, move over? Cool. Yeah. No, that's for the flashing lights. What's the rail one? I guess it's just slow down.
Slow down and get off the tracks? I don't know. No,
speed up and get off the tracks.
Speed up. Speed off. Speed up, stay on the tracks, ideally. But yeah, I mean, Canada's stock markets are going to continue to fall. I mean, we are a energy commodity-based economy with a government that doesn't believe in commodities because, we're all going to die in 2030 because of, weather and stuff. So
climate change,
pay
more taxes.
Yeah. So this is just going to be more of the same, and it's just going to be. It's going to continue. I hate to break it to people, but times are not going to be getting any better anytime soon with the current government. As far as Canadians are concerned, we are wood, forest products, precious metals, diamonds, and obviously oil, and then fisheries out east. That is basically what Canada has to offer. Yeah, there's very few now, but that is what Canada has to offer. And this current government has no interest in any of it, and we're screwed. Sad to say, and it affects every level of it. Right down to the trucks that I fix at my day job. If there's no goods or commodities to ship across the country or down to the U.S., then they're not going to be breaking down, and there's going to be no work for me to fix. Right? There's going to be nothing for us to do. So it affects everybody.
Interestingly, the one of the main fisheries we had left on the East Coast was the lobster fishery, which is in free fall as well right now because nobody from China is buying lobsters. So
they're not doing so hot either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a hot stock tip for everybody. Invest in semi-precious metals. Copper jacketed lead. Always goes up in value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you guys, well, I guess we should transition to the next one. Can you guys enlighten me on what this Buffalo Declaration is all about? kind of.
I would love to. This is on the Post Millennial, but there were some other news outlets were covering this, but they were talking about like manifestos and things, and I don't know that that's a fair assessment of the Buffalo Declaration. There is a handy dandy website, it's buffalodeclaration.com. 4 Alberta MPs are currently signed on to this. It's Michelle Rempel, Gary Motz, Glenn Motz, Arnold Verzin, and Blake Richards. So, I mean, obviously anybody who's listened to the show for more than like 2 episodes know that we have a little crush on Michelle Rempel because she's very firearms friendly.
And
she
lovely.
also regularly speaks her mind in the House.
Mm-hmm.
And by speaks her mind, I mean poops all over Liberal policy.
Tells you to shove it.
And Glenn Motz is our new favorite MP because he sponsored e-petition 1234. That's not the number, but you know it's the e-petition that I always screw up. It's the new one, the biggest one that we've had signed, 175,000 signatures, asking the Liberal government that if they're going to ban firearms, to not do it through an order in council, but rather follow the correct parliamentary process for passing laws.
And don't be a bunch of commies.
Yeah, I mean, basically that's what it says. It basically says don't ban guns, stop being commies.
Yeah, pretty much. So we like Glenn Moss. He was also at TACOM. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I don't know anything about the other 2 MPs, Arnold Verson or Blake Richards, but that's fine. I don't need to know anything about them. So the Buffalo Declaration thing. There are effectively 3 pillars to this. Alberta is not and has never been an equal participant in Confederation. Alberta is a culturally distinct region that has not been recognized. Alberta is physically and structurally isolated from economic and political power structures. And Eastern Canada functionally treats Alberta as a colony rather than an equal partner. So these are all of their issues. The Declaration lays out a way that they can get forward on this, and basically it's fixing Confederation, allowing Alberta equal participation at the table with the federal government. There are structural reforms that need to happen with this, and then they've got a piece on why they're speaking out. And part of this is reconciliation with the, we'll call them native Albertans, and also the people that live in Alberta. So they want to have the indigenous communities involved. They want to work towards reconciliation, and they want to control their own economy.
Well, they're calling it the Buffalo Declaration too, not because they like the city near Niagara on the lake, but back in the day when it was still just the Northwest Territories that comprised of Alberta, Saskatchewan, most of Manitoba, and so on, they were worried, I guess, out east about it becoming like a power block that would rival them, so they decided to break it up into the provinces. But originally there was a proposal to make one big province called Buffalo, and that's how that name came around.
Well, and I'm a little bit unclear on that, because I think the proposed province of Buffalo would effectively be the same landmass that is currently Saskatchewan and Alberta?
Yeah, because they were still going to carve off the Northwest Territories no matter what. And just leave
and
that
BC to be BC, I suppose.
Well, BC was a province like 30 years before Alberta and Saskatchewan, right? So it was already carved off.
So it was already a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how Manitoba fits into this picture, but it was also like 1900, so maybe nobody noticed it was
Manitoba
there.
was already a thing before that.
Yeah. See, Manitoba,
like they had the Métis and all that, right?
Back they originally had a
Confederation.
Yeah, it was like a tiny little square around Winnipeg was the original Manitoba.
Yeah.
It was originally a very, very small province, but then they expanded it to its current borders.
Is that as the same time that Alberta came into a thing, or was that at a different point? Just because I'm curious about
way
the geography.
Even before BC, I believe.
No, same year actually. I would do 1873. So, but it was kind of crazy. So the little postage stamp was 1873, as well as BC, and then later on Manitoba got more.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the geographical history of Manitoba.
Yeah,
I
remember grade 10 history. That's when I remember learning about that.
If I'm wrong, my wife would probably come out here screaming momentarily that I was totally wrong about that.
You're wrong.
Yeah. No, it's so originally they were worried about having too much. Yeah. That wouldn't be the first time. So yeah, no, it's it would have been originally a very good province with Alberta and Saskatchewan already pre-merged, especially now. But I wish these guys would have gotten more than just 4 Alberta MPs on board. I wish they would have got some Saskatchewan people on board too.
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see this grow. Like, I've used a lot of negatives in one sentence. I expect to see this grow because these are just like the first 4 people to sign on to it.
Yeah, they started it like the forefathers.
It seems a relatively new thing. Like, I mean, like the concept is not new, but this particular declaration and website seems very new. Like, this is all
So are they taking this declaration to Ottawa? Are they looking for signatures? Like, what? How do you get behind this?
I believe that they are trying to collect signatures, not the MPs specifically, but like the organization, the Buffalo Declaration. Whoever is running this, I believe, is trying to collect signatures.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine they're going to try and form a voting bloc and call for some sort of a referendum.
Hopefully, all of Canada can vote. Well, what would be better? They just vote on it, or all of Canada?
Well, did they let everybody else vote when Quebec was deciding to separate?
I don't remember. It was only Quebec, wasn't it?
It was only Quebec.
Yeah.
See, because if they would have let everybody else vote, they probably would have let them go. Or just tell them to leave.
I remember.
I don't even know if we would have voted to let them go. I think we would have voted to force them off. Like, just get rid of Quebec and make the drive to New Brunswick 2 days shorter.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
yes.
Judging
there's
by
a bunch of a bunch of stuff in their structural solutions piece that they want to deal with. Part of this is treating Alberta or Buffalo or whatever this region is going to be as a culturally unique region, the same way that Quebec is considered culturally unique and has their own national assembly. The framers of the Buffalo Declaration are looking for something similar, that Alberta is a unique and special place and should be treated as such. So they will effectively make it a country within a country, even if it stays in confederation, the same way that Quebec is. It's effectively a country within a country. They're allowed to have their own language rights. They're allowed to have their own school systems. They're allowed to decide how they run their province, and they have a federal assembly to do it from.
I mean, are we against anything they're asking for? I feel like everything's pretty reasonable, or is it not?
I think this is all very reasonable, and again, like I've complained about this on the show before, we are a confederation of convenience. We shouldn't exist as a country. We are no less than 4 unique cultural groups. Like, no less than 4 unique cultural groups.
Yeah, minimum.
And nothing in our history is founded on struggle. It's all been convenience, and maybe to avoid going to war with the Americans.
Yeah, right? that was a pretty big one.
Well, there's some of that, like post 1812, like post American War, going into the U.S. like the American Civil War. So that was like in the 1850s,
60s,
1860s. Okay, 1860s. Yeah. There was a point following the American Civil War where the Americans were like, maybe we're going to invade Canada and like get rid of those Brits that are running that place, because it was a British colony at the time, right? So like they just like they had their War of Independence,
which was
they had British and French colonies to their north.
Mm-hmm.
They had the War of 1812 with Britain to like clearly define where that border is and try to keep them separate. They had the war between the states with the tyrant Lincoln doing that whole thing, and then they were like, there's still this whole like looming threat of the British Empire still having a major colony like within marching distance of their capital. So I think there's a lot of there was a lot of convenience by having Confederation as a protectionism against the Americans because of this.
We basically had the French backing us up, and the Americans were friends with the French at the time. They helped them out with the whole...
well, the French backed the Revolutionary War, the French backed the War of Independence, the French backed the North in the War of Northern Aggression. Like, there's a lot of...
They sent them the Eiffel Tower, or not, what's her name there? Statue of Liberty. That's it. They're best friends. They were BFFs back when
I would say that they were, they had pretty close political affiliations, right? Like it was in the French government's interest for the Americans to succeed.
Well, yeah, they were fighting a proxy war using the Americans to say "fuck you" to the British.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of it, and I think another big piece of it was American textile manufacturing and cotton farming and some of the other agricultural things, because the Americans, from the American Revolutionary War through to the war between the states, the Americans were exporting a lot of material to France, right? And the French were reimbursing them in military supplies. Like that was the trade. Okay, so like, oh, we're going to give you cotton to make clothes out of, but you're going to give
Here's
us
some guns.
muskets and things.
Here's some guns.
So, yeah, the whole Confederation of Convenience, the whole fact that it's a giant landmass, that it's no less than 4 culturally distinct groups of people all living in the same place. The one of their other big complaints in the Buffalo Declaration is the Northern Energy Program, which is,
Pipelines, essentially.
I think, something that, well, I think Alberta lost on this when they were trying to remain having a seat at the table with the federal government under Trudeau the Senior when the Northern Energy Program came into this. This is part of how we have transfer payments, the equalization payments between the provinces.
Equalization? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of that same national energy program. So this means that every other province gets to control their own natural resources at the provincial level, except Alberta. They have to do what the federal government tells them.
Yeah, I really don't understand how that hasn't been overturned to this day, especially once they started booming with all the oil industry, oil and shale.
Honestly, I think it was because of the way that Trudeau the Senior reframed the Constitution in Canada and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and I think the National Energy Program was a trade-off to allow Alberta to keep some semblance of power at the federal level. So I think this was part of their trade-off, but I do not know all of the details or the history around how that all came into being.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're definitely getting the shit end of the stick, as it were. I mean, I'm all for Alberta having control of its resources. I don't see why they shouldn't.
Well, I think they should be able to control their resources. I think they and every other province should get some sort of proportional representation at the federal level. I think that
at this point, I think they'd even be happy if the Prime Minister would include them in the list of provinces when he's doing a speech during the Stampede or something like that.
I mean, that'd be a start, right?
Yeah, that'd be something. I mean, the funny thing is they're complaining about being treated like a colony, where I would argue with, at least as a colony, you're considered part of the country. I mean, yeah, because I mean, back in Britain's heyday, when they had India was the crown jewel of the British Empire type of thing. Anybody in India had British citizenship. Whereas you actually talk to somebody from Ontario and you mention Alberta, they treat it like it's some leper colony, and yeah, it's
well, I mean, idiot Ontarians, I guess. I mean,
yeah, I mean they're not. A lot of people don't consider Alberta to be on the same footing as them or anything else, and it's just well, yeah, I can understand why these people are pissed off.
I mean, they honestly should be the economic powerhouse of the entire country, really.
Well, I think if they were allowed to function without the level of government interference, they would be.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I guess on the same token, while we're talking about this, it's not in the show notes, but the news came out today that the Teck Frontier mine in northern Alberta, Teck has decided to cancel the program. They are not moving forward.
Just like every other program.
I don't know what the federal government or the provincial government in Alberta is doing. I know there's been a lot of talks about this recently. I think that the holdup was on the federal level, not the provincial level. And I think that there was supposed to have been a ruling come out today, but also Teck said, screw it, we're taking our ball and we're going home.
Yeah, we're done. We're done with this dog and pony show. Fuck you guys.
Well, they clearly realize that the current regime is not business friendly. So what's the point, right? I mean, if they're going to run into roadblocks constantly trying to get this thing going,
just like every other oil and gas.
And, fuck this shit, I'm out type of thing, right?
So they've been bleeding investment since the Trudeau government took power 5 years ago. It's just more of the same. Just more of the same. And it's depressing, and I feel really bad for Alberta.
Just so happy.
Good luck for all of the native Canadian bands in that part of Alberta that were bought into this, that were looking forward to millions of dollars of new construction and jobs for their people.
Yeah.
Way to screw over a bunch of natives, Trudeau government. Good job.
Yeah. Doing a great job.
Let's go to Ian's neck of the woods. This is in the Vancouver Sun. BC budget 2020. High income earners, pop drinkers to pay more taxes. Apparently, those are the only things that matter in the British Columbia budget.
You guys got a pop drinking problem or something? What the fuck's the deal with that?
Okay, so this is a. Go ahead, Ian.
I think they're just looking to tax the shit out of everybody that they can, and in typical socialist fashion, they're going to tax the people who have the best ability to leave the province. In which case, you're going to have those people leave. The tax income won't be there, so they'll move down to the next strata of society, and they'll piss them off, and they'll leave. And it's like this socialist death spiral. They just don't see it coming. That's what gets me.
Is the NDP government currently in charge there, or did you guys vote in some liberals?
Even worse, an unelected NDP Green coalition.
What the ass fuck is that? I didn't even realize that was a thing.
Okay, so if you can imagine this, I still can't wrap my head around it because I refuse to actually go along with it. But talk to most people in BC, and they'll tell you that BC's Liberal Party are actually conservatives. Like, you just don't understand. Liberals are conservatives here, and I'm like, no, they're liberals. Anyway, but liberals were kind of like the ruling party going on, and they were like the least communist, but still communist. And so
commie light, as it were.
They were commie light, and so they got reelected last election, but they only had like a 1-seat majority. And so what happened was they had like a floor crosser, and just enough people changed hands that without a new snap election, they actually just had the next two parties join forces and declare themselves in charge of the province, and nobody said anything. So we actually have
honk.
We currently have it.
It's like a living nightmare. What the Jesus?
We currently have an unelected government that's running the thing, but it's a coalition government, much like Germany style. So yeah,
well, you know how that goes.
Hashtag not my government, Bane. That's right. So I still can't wrap my head around the fact that this is a unelected coalition government running the place. But in order to make their NDP and Green overlords happy, they decided to just tax the daylights out of other people. So the wife and I ran some calculations, and for the average, I would say, middle class person here, you're talking about extra $1,000 a month out of their pocket.
What?
Yeah. But the thing is, the way they wrap it around the article, they're like, well, don't worry, we're only going to be taxing millionaires and the top 1%. And then they turn right around and say, well, if you're actually making more than $104,000 a year, you're actually in that highest bracket. Now you're paying an extra 3.8% on top of what you already paid.
Jesus. So mass exodus very soon. When does this come into effect?
Retroactive to January 1st.
Oh.
On the upside, this is one of the only provinces that has a balanced budget.
Yeah, well, and you know why they're increasing the taxes? Because they want to be able to spend more without going into debt. So,
which I mean,
at least they understand it better than the current federal government does.
I'm not in favor of what they're doing or how they're doing it, but at least
at least this guy knows
did
math.
the budget,
better than more. No, better than.
I got to give them some credit. It's a balanced budget. They're doing it without debt spending.
Yeah, but so people that were on the fence about leaving
are now leaving.
Some that may even be in my family are now off the fence and firmly decided on one side of the equation.
Like fucking throwing it up in the air and fucking we're out of here, bitch.
Yeah.
Well, and so let's talk about some of the tax changes, because the NDP government that you have, or I guess I'm going to call it the coalition government you have, Ian.
Yes.
Since coming into power, they've changed at least 17 different sources of taxation that they have.
Yeah.
They've they're projecting a $220 million surplus and $60 billion in spending, with little to no increases in welfare, disability, shelter allowances, sexual violence support, youth homelessness, or other social programs. The budget's being lauded as being overly cautious, which I think is actually how budgets should be. So again, what the fuck? I love the NDP now?
Yeah, if you like,
I hate when this happens.
Yeah, but if you only like making half of what you actually made. I mean,
so one of the other pieces that they got
foreign telecommunications.
Well, and I want to talk about this because this is the Netflix tax, right? So the federal government has talked about this before. Other provinces have talked about this before. So the way that the sales tax works is you have to be operating in that province in order to collect and remit sales tax, which companies like Netflix, as a really good example, do not do, because Netflix does not have physical offices in BC, and they do not physically sell product from a store in BC. So they do not collect a sales tax when they sell to somebody in BC. So the communists, the provincial government, feels like they are missing out on millions and millions of tax dollars.
Tax revenue. Everybody watches Netflix. We got to get in on that shit, yo.
Well, but they are talking about literally millions of dollars in untapped tax dollars that they could be getting by adding this new tax.
Got some bright minds in that NDP. Some bright minds.
Oh, hey, communists are
Or
great
they're
at
gonna
spending other people's monies, man.
And collecting it.
Yeah, so the best part will be like Netflix will say, "Hey, I noticed based on your IP address, you're living in Canada or in BC, so we're not going to provide services to you to avoid paying PST or whatever on our services." So VPNs for all, I guess.
Yeah, but it doesn't work with Netflix. At least not that I know how. Like Netflix detects VPNs. I've tried. Yeah, so you got to get some really high tech VPNs if you want that shit to work.
I know a guy.
Interesting. We'll talk after the show.
So we've got that. We've got a significant change in marginal tax rates. One of the tax brackets will be 20.5% for people with taxable incomes of more than $220,000, which is a 4% increase. They're talking about this one change alone, increasing tax revenues by $216 million.
But you said that there's going to be no extra spending. So, like, what do they need all this money for?
So they're not increasing their current spending on social services or other. They're just they're rearranging how they spend the money. They're
so
not.
Like, go to
it's not that they're spending. It's not that they're spending less money. It's just that they're not spending money that they don't have. They're not doing any debt spending. They're not borrowing money to spend it. But that also means that they're not making significant increases to social services. They're not making significant increases to health and education. But they are rearranging things. Like, for example, they've taken away almost all of their contingency budget. So that's like oh shit, we didn't plan for that budget? Yeah, we don't have one of those anymore in BC. They're also reducing general government spending by like 18%, which I'm super in favor of and very confused by, because how the communists are going to spend less on the category in the budget called general government, I do not know.
What communist book are they reading from? That is not the commie way.
I know, I'm super confused. Economic development, which not surprising. Transportation, which whatever. Public safety is a couple percentage points. They're increasing slightly to their debt servicing. Education, health, and social services, and by slightly I mean like between 1% and 7%. So they're just rearranging the money that they have. And of course, they found all these new opportunities to get more tax revenue, like increasing the marginal tax rate for people that earn more than $220,000 by 4%. That alone gets them an extra $200 million on the books. They're also going to do, and this is my favorite one, this is in the style of Mike Bloomberg, former New York City mayor, now Democratic presidential hopeful in America. They're going to charge you the sugar soda tax. So on sugary drinks, they're going to add an additional 7% PST.
How much? 7%
on your soda pops and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. It's going to be like a $3 pop drink.
Well, they're expecting this to add $30 million to their budget.
Like, they also charge PST on used vehicles over and over and over again. So you buy a used vehicle here, 10 different, like the same vehicle gets sold 10 times. Each time you're paying PST on it.
Well, of course.
I just don't even, like, what's the point? Like, it's such a dick move. What do you need to tax my pop another 7% for?
Especially
because they're trying to set up the largest consumers of pop and sweetened drinks, consumers between the ages of 14 to 18, to make sure that we're, let me quote, I think this is the finance minister, but I'm not positive. We want to make sure that we're doing our part to set them on the stage for having a healthy life ahead. So it's a consumption tax.
It's like trying to change the weather with more tax.
No, this is like This is more like getting people to stop smoking by making cigarettes cost more.
Yeah.
They're going to make people drink less pop by making pop cost more. It's a consumption tax.
But I mean, is pop really that bad? Like, especially if you're just drinking diet? Like, I mean, how many? I like to like see the numbers on like how many. Like,
okay, so first off, I'm going to make the argument that pop is not actually a sugary drink. It's a fructose corn syrup drink, and we should not be subsidizing the mass production of corn and then turning it into high fructose corn syrup. But that is a whole other like tinfoil hat conversation that we can have, because I don't think we should be doing what we're doing with corn, and we sure shouldn't be putting it into drinks and just like mainlining it into people, because it is not healthy. Stop drinking high fructose corn syrup. Like, that aside.
Sorry.
That's aspartame is much better. So
yeah, whatever. It's not going to my thighs.
I mean, no, but it has a whole bunch of other health consequences, and this is part of the thing. Is like, because healthcare is publicly funded, if you incentivize people to be healthier, they could, at least in theory, probably not in a communist-run state, but like at least in theory, if you incentivize people to be healthy, make better life choices like not drinking high fructose corn syrup or aspartame, you should end up with less of a burden on your healthcare system, because you won't have a bunch of fat fucks in the hospital with diabetes.
Diabetes.
Right? Like that's the theory. That's why they increased the taxes on cigarettes, is to curb smoking.
Yeah, and also
right?
pay for all the people that have emphysema when they're 55.
Right. So like there is some logic. I'm going to use the word logic behind it, but like that's
Very
only
carefully.
because our healthcare system is poorly run and based on like fake socialism. Hey Ian, what are your helmet laws like in BC? Do I have to wear a motorcycle helmet if I'm, say, a Sikh?
heck no,
Yeah. So
we're not racist.
Tell me again why telling teens to not drink pop is gonna decrease the healthcare costs when you let people run around on motorcycles without helmets on them?
Yeah, unfortunately, when they introduced that law, they didn't say, well, you're on your own for the healthcare bill if you're in the hospital due to a head injury, but they did not, because they didn't want to be racist. So, they have some huge dichotomies in their logical thinking.
Cognitive dissonance, mental leaps.
Yeah.
There's a couple other changes. If you can afford to buy a car and live in BC, you could get a subsidy for your electric car, because, those are definitely more affordable. So we should definitely subsidize those. And they're coming up with a $24 million grant program for low-income college and university students. And they're going to offer them up to $4,000 based on some poorly defined criteria.
So that's like a half a semester or something like that?
Something like that. So, yeah, BC. Let's go on to federally. This is in the Globe and Mail. Average Canadian household spent more on taxes and living costs in 2018. I know, everybody is shocked. Let me read the first line here. The average Canadian household paid nearly $40,000 in taxes last year, more than the combined cost of clothing, food, and shelter. This is in the Fraser Institute's annual report on Canadian Consumer Tax Index. It's an increase of $701 over the previous year. Yay, taxation.
Theft. Did I say that?
Well, I mean, it is. That's kind of the thing, though, right? Like, basic expenditures don't keep going up. Taxes keep going up.
Yeah, my pay only goes up like 1.5% unless I get a promotion, at best, usually. But taxation keeps going up exponentially, let's say.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, the highest marginal tax rate between like 1960 and today, it's gone up 4% for the highest marginal tax rate. No, pardon me. It's gone up more than 11%. I can't read. So
40.8% from 1961 to 1981. 44.
No. You're reading the same part that I misread. The tax rate was up 33% over the same period from 1960 till 1981, but it's gone up more since 1981. So going up to today, it's like we pay a crazy amount of tax in this country. We pay more for tax than everything else that we pay for. right?
I mean, you think about it, right? Like everything that you buy, you do, you're taxed on it multiple times.
Well, you're not
Like,
taxed on it multiple times, and I've heard this.
but like the money you make's taxed, and the gas you make
Right.
is
So you have your at source deductions, your income tax. So like whether you get it taken off your paycheck or whether you pay for it at the end of the year, you get taxed on your earnings, your taxable income. And
it should just
depending on
end
where
there, though.
Well, let's take your like say your average Canadian. The average Canadian makes something like $53,000 a year, which
Yeah,
I think is low, but that's what the average works out to. We've talked about it on the show before.
I think there's a lot more lows. Kind of brings the average down. I think.
And maybe that's what it is, but and maybe I just don't associate with those people that are like below the poverty line.
Yeah, it's not 30 grand like the government would have you think.
It's very bourgeoisie of me to say that, but maybe I just don't associate with those people. Probably because those people can't afford to go to the range. I just don't.
Yeah,
see them.
Ammo's expensive. FYI.
So, like, say you're a $50,000 a year earner, right? You're that $53,000 a year. So your marginal tax rate is like 21%, something like this.
Yeah, the next tax bracket kicks up at 88. I'm just going to dip into that this year.
Yeah, well, and it's marginal. So you're like, okay, so your at source deduction, you lose 20% of your pay on your at source deductions or on your T4 at the end of the year when you do your income tax. Then you're in, say, Ontario, and you lose another 13% anytime that you spend $1, with like some exceptions. But say you go to buy ammo, you lose another 13%.
Mm-hmm.
You want to buy gas, and then you lose another 12% or something at the pumps because it's so many cents per liter, so it fluctuates based on how much the gas is selling for that day. Because the taxes
I thought it was higher. I thought it was like in the 20% range, but I could be wrong.
So you have with gas and maybe this varies by province, but in Ontario you have sales tax on gas, you have road taxes on gas, which are so many cents per liter, and now we have carbon taxes on gas. So like on any given day, the price per liter right now is like $1.05 per liter. Something like 30 cents of that is taxes.
Yeah.
At like various levels of government that are stealing your money. If you want to heat your home, you're paying tax on that. If you want to buy electricity, you're paying taxes on that. If you want
your license plate.
All of these things are all just like regular sales tax, consumption taxes, right? So like in theory, if you didn't buy gas or clothes or food, you wouldn't pay for those things. And a lot of food is exempted or at a lower tax rate, right? You're not paying PST, you're maybe only paying HST. GST. So some things, and like children's clothing and things, there's other exemptions for that. So maybe you're not paying 13% across the board, but then you have things like gas where you're paying way more than 13% because of all of these other taxes they built onto it. Then on top of that, you have property tax. So say you own a house, like your average middle income earner in Canada at $53,000 that owns a home. So now you're paying another, whatever that is, $4,000 or $5,000 in property tax. So that's another 10% of your total earnings, right? Like it doesn't take long to get up to 50%.
No,
and that's only for the people that are on like.
You haven't done anything.
Those are only on the people that are on like the median. Wait till you get to the people that are on the 42% marginal tax rate that are making that 88 plus K a year.
Yeah. It's like not even worth. It's almost not even worth it, especially if you're like, it's just you see even less of that. You're seeing, like you said, we just went over the numbers. I mean, I'm spitballing here, but you're probably seeing maybe 30% of that then at the end of the day. Really, once you've tried to spend it.
Being that my family, I'm not going to say that we're high income earners, but we are definitely into that top. We've gotten to they can't tax me more at source, so they find other ways to tax me. I don't know that we're necessarily like a high income earning family, but my wife and I are not Walmart greeters, right? And we pay over 60% of every dollar that we earn to the government. Like, it's obscene.
It's not like you live a lavish lifestyle either.
Right, and that's what I mean. Like, we're not driving like rust
Lexus
bucket cars, right? Like, but that's what I mean. Like, we're not. Our house isn't falling apart. Our cars aren't falling apart. But like, we don't really fit outside of like the middle class, right? We have decent jobs, we have decent cars, we live in a decent house.
Yeah, but you work hard for that money, basically.
Well, that's what I mean. And we lose 60 cents out of every dollar goes to the government.
Mm. Yeah.
Like it blows my mind, and nobody seems upset about it.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to send me off the deep end, just say the word social contract, because I don't recall like signing one and or having an out for it, like, or an opt-out function for this social contract.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't be as offended about it. I wouldn't be as triggered by it if I was actually getting the services. Like, okay, so when I go and I buy a bottle of whiskey, that I can go to the States and I can buy a bottle of Crown for $22 US, and I go to the LCBO and it costs me $48 for the same bottle of booze. And that extra excise tax is, and again, this is not a sales tax. This is one of these hidden things because it's an excise tax, so it's just built into the price that's supposed to in Ontario pay for my health care. So great, like we had a baby and we didn't have to pay any money to have the baby in the hospital. But all of our chronic pain and illnesses, we're not getting dealt with. You want an MRI in this province? You wait for years.
6 months to a year.
Yeah. You need some sort of major surgery or major treatment done. Like good luck. Good luck.
4 hours at a clinic just to get some muscle relaxant pills.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, when have you had an interaction with the government where you're like, wow, that was really completely painless and I definitely got my money's worth?
Now I know what my taxes are going
Yeah, I
for.
sure am glad I'm paying taxes.
Yeah, like I would rather keep my money and just go to the States and have to pay my $20,000 to have my baby, because it would have been a much.
Well, it's not even that. Just hold down a good job in the States, and like your company rolls that into the pay that they give you, right? Like
in a lot of cases, I mean, it depends, but I mean, I would still rather just get to keep my money and pay for the services I need. Because how many times are family doctors overlooking things? How many times do people not have family doctors or can't get family doctors? How many times are we have like crowded or problematic?
I went a year without one, and then it was only because my mom goes to a doctor regularly that she was able to be like, hey, this doctor's taking on patients. You can get with this doctor. It's not like they phone me or tried to find me a new one or.
Well, it's not like down the States, you can actually buy Blue Cross plans and actually just provide your own insurance for a heck of a lot less than you're paying in taxes. So healthcare can still be had down the States, just in a different way. Like you just choose your level of coverage, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I would be much, much happier with that because, again, like young family in relatively good shape, like our healthcare costs, were I to pay out of pocket in like the American style system, would be relatively low because we go to the doctor once in a while. You gotta get a prescription for when you get sick and you need antibiotics or whatever. Like we're not like at risk for chronic diseases. We're not going for, repeat visits for chronic illness type stuff. We're not people that are burdening the system, but I'm still like, it still costs me all of this money and I get nothing for it.
Yeah.
And maybe that'd be okay if it was like, if I knew it was benefiting people that I cared about, but like, I have so many friends and family members that have been screwed over by our healthcare system because they're not getting the care that we need. But if you're a Syrian refugee, you get a bunch of free checkups and you get a free dental care and you get all this stuff that like I don't even get as a taxpayer.
And safe injection sites in prisons. Don't forget about those.
Right.
And that's on Front Street as well.
I wouldn't be as upset about it if it was going towards people that I actually cared about. But to give junkies in prison clean needles, maybe just stop giving the junkies in prison drugs. Or I don't know.
Let them suffer with the consequences that they've made. I mean, they've already made bad decisions. Let's let them make a few more, and then we don't have to pay for them anymore.
Well, that's another option. And that's what so like if it was going towards like actually helping people, it'd be one thing. But like it's the same thing. Like how many?
Not to get high in prison. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, that's a whole other problem that we have with the whole safe injection in prisons thing. One other taxation is theft piece. This is on Global. Farm income to fall back 12% due to carbon tax. Kind of misleading. This is from the Agricultural Producers Association of Saskatchewan. It's not that income is falling. It's that taxation is going up because you have to pay the carbon tax. So they're just taking 12% off the bottom line of your average Saskatchewan farmer. Now, how much of this is the association like spinning the numbers to suit themselves, and how much of it is true? There's
I don't know if
the
about
truth lies
farming
probably
per se.
somewhere in the middle about this.
I'm sure it's not good. I'm sure it's there. Maybe not as
Well, but
bad
that's what I mean. Like, so if you got to pay all these extra carbon taxes on your farm fuel and your propane and all of
probably
these
on the heavy
other,
equipment that you use to run the farm, it's probably, again, it's like we were just talking about at every level. You're getting this carbon tax on the fuel. You're getting it on the combines that you need to run. You're getting it on everything.
Well,
you know what I mean?
this past year, it was a particularly wet year, so all the grain producers in Saskatchewan bought an unseemly amount of propane to dry their grain, so they didn't have grain spoilage.
Mm-hmm.
So they're talking about a 12% reduction in profit as a result of this.
A lot of fucking money.
Well,
I mean, I feel like, and I don't know, I don't know a whole lot about farming but from everything I read, like, farmers don't actually make a lot of money. So like a 12% hit to whatever it is that they're making, I feel like it's a lot of money.
And I feel like this is unfairly targeting small and family farms. If you're running a big mega farm and you're a giant corporate farming operation, I feel like you're going to find a tax loophole and there's going to be a way around this, or you're going to do something that's going to offset this, or you can get some credits from some cap and trade scheme. Or I feel like there's a way that big business, like big agriculture business, is going to get away with this without being adversely impacted. It's probably going to hurt their bottom line, but it's not going to hurt their bottom line the same way that this is going to hit the small family farming operation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Big Slick mentioned there that he spent $5,000 on propane for drying his grain for this year. So that's not
a shitload of propane.
Yeah, like
that's
you
a
think
shit
about
ton of propane.
Yeah, I mean, you think about how much actual propane. That's probably enough propane to probably fill up a tanker truck. Like, you know what I mean?
Hank Hill would be impressed.
Yeah, Strickland propane salutes you.
I had some more rail blockade stuff in the show notes. I don't know that it's worth talking about the Milk Boy and his racist comments, because I couldn't get any good sound bites of Scheer's speech. But basically,
well, the only thing
Scheer's a racist now.
The only thing I want to mention about that is the fact that he basically said that we should do exactly what Trudeau agreed to do this week. So, like last week it was racist. This week it is totally a good idea.
The thing that bothers me the most about this is the fucking like high school politics where you're not coming to my meeting. You're not allowed in. Like, what the fuck is that? Yeah, I don't know. It really irks me that that's a thing. It seems it really.
So Elizabeth May, Elizabeth May, who has two or three seats, whatever, and she gets invited to the meeting, but the official opposition does not. Like, I don't care if you don't like the guy.
It smells very communist to me. I really, really, really don't like that move, that stunt. It really irks me, like, to my core. To be honest with you, I don't know. It's not good. It's not a good precedent to set. You can't just bar the opposition leader with the second most seats in the House from such an important meeting. I don't know. Yeah. It affects the country.
What if he says mean things?
Who says mean things?
But my feels.
What if the opposition leader says something mean about you? Then can you ban him?
I mean, it should be more reason that he gets to be there. I mean, that's what the opposition's job is.
Yeah, that is kind of his job. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's honestly it's scary in my opinion, and I know not enough people in this country give a fuck. They just whatever, Trudeau's doing the right thing or something like that because they voted for him or whatever. But it's just a really, really, really bad precedent to set. You should not even be allowed to do that, in my opinion. You really shouldn't. I don't know. It's scary.
Yeah, I think we might need a overhaul of our parliamentary process. And good news, Milk Boy might do it. I doubt it though. So this is in iPolitics. Process nerd. Tories set the stage for non-confidence vote with latest supply debate gambit. This is from February 19th, and it hasn't happened yet. Remember, today is the 24th, so this is from a week ago.
Won't happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think so either. I mean, if it hasn't happened yet, I feel like this is just some posturing that just to make some
nobody's in a position to come out in a better position, right? We've talked about this before. Marty brought it up.
Yeah, we've kind of beat this issue to death a little. I mean, it's just not a good idea for the Conservative Party to do this right now. It's going to spell.
No, not right now. So I think this is going to sit on the back burner, but I wanted to bring it up because it was an iPolitics, and I guess they've got a notice paper that's ready to go, but the theory was that they were going to submit it at some point last week, and they have not as of yet.
I feel like it was just something to get the Liberals' attention as far as getting them to start talking about what needs to actually be dealt with, and that was the rail blockade stuff. Which I guess
I don't even think that's what it was. I think this was just another stick in case the shiny pony continued on his UN mission to get a Security Council seat.
Which I heard he was told no, like it's not going to happen. I heard Russia and China vetoed any such thing.
Good.
So,
good.
Hopefully he just fucking finally drops this whole fucking spiel and focuses on our country for 5 fucking minutes.
Well, I don't know. We've got Bill Blair focusing on the rail blockade issue. This is good. So today, not in the show notes, but today, the OPP in Ontario I learned how to say this on the weekend. Tangawandinga? I can't say it now, but somebody taught me how to say it on.
Say it again.
That?
Wait,
Tyandanega? Something like that?
Sure, why not?
Something like that. Tyandanega. So the Mohawks there got cleaned out by the OPP today. They got told, like, okay, court injunction, go home. We're going to count to 10. Anybody still here at 10 gets arrested. Oh, look, you're all still here. You're getting arrested.
Yeah, guess what? We're arresting you now.
Racist!
Yeah. How dare you? Nazis! Nazis!
So the OPP had that approach. Bill Blair and the RCMP in British Columbia had a different approach. The RCMP agrees to leave Wet'suwet'en territory. Feds call for urgent talks. Of course, there's no timeline on that. And Blair said that it's unclear what the next steps are, but he believes that the barricades should come down, and he's very proud of the RCMP and their commitment to a peaceful resolution of the complex issues. So
they just enabled bad behavior, is what you're saying.
So basically, no change. Everybody's still blockading stuff in BC.
Quid pro quo-ish.
Well, I don't know about quid pro quo, but maybe. I mean, like, part of the argument is that they don't want to make the situation worse by acting too brashly, so they need to find a way to de-escalate this and come to, like, a peaceful resolution, which I kind of get, but I feel like that was a court injunction. I feel like a court injunction should have been a peaceful resolution, being like, yeah, okay, so you protested, you shut down private businesses, you trespassed, you interfered with the economy of the rest of the country, it went to court, and a judge told you to pound sand.
So is the law going to be applied equally or not?
Well, it's not. I mean, we've seen that time and again. Clown world, man. We don't live in a serious country. We don't live in a place where the rule of law can be enforced.
I was going to say, rule of law is just a figment of your imagination.
No. It applies to Ian. Look at Ian's skin. It applies to Ian.
Yep.
Yeah. It's true.
So, I mean, I think we're going to start to see the end of these protests because A, people are going to be bored and cold. It's been 3 weeks and nothing's changed.
Money's going to run out from Soros.
Well, I mean, that's part of it is the paid protesters. How long are they going to keep paying them? How much media attention is this still getting? And, like, the court orders in other provinces are being enforced. So it's only a matter of time until this happens in BC. It's just it's a waiting game.
Maybe they'll start taxing them. Like, hey, if you need, there's going to be a new railroad tax. If you want to live on the railroad, you get an extra 20% tax.
So there's no new talks. There's no new negotiation that I know about. The government's open to doing it, and the Wet'suwet'en have basically told the government no. And the RCMP is refusing to enforce court injunctions. Oh,
I'm glad Ontario at least got us cleaned up a little bit from what I can see. So hopefully the East Coast will start getting some more goods and services back again. Hopefully get their stores stocked back up a little, and hopefully not so much panic. As far as I can tell.
The last one that I'm going to touch on, we've really already covered. I don't think there's anything specific in this, but the Financial Post Ted Morton, Trudeau's nightmare comes true as he's forced to choose between climate activists and national unity. And, I mean, there's nothing in this article really that we haven't already touched on with pipelines and climate change and protesters and consulting the natives.
Mm.
They just tied it all together nice.
Yeah, no, it was pretty much a good summation of basically everything we've been talking about.
So there's a bunch of good background in that, but I don't think there's anything in that we haven't already covered.
Mm. Mm.
All right, I'm going to try and read feedback from Todd. It was sent from his iPad.
All right.
Turn your signature line off there, Todd. I guess this is probably in relation to a specific podcast that we did recently. I don't recall which one it was, and I could probably find out if I paid more attention. Oh, there it is. It's not in relation to a specific podcast. The subject is what the fucking fuck. That podcast was a parade of human misery. I'm certainly coming around to two concepts you speak about frequently. One, we're not a serious country. Two, accelerationism, question mark, is the best way to go. Let it slide and buy more ammo. So just as a point of clarification, I guess I'm going to editorialize for a moment before I go back to reading this. The phrase that we're looking for is accelerationism. Mm-hmm. But
you wrote it in the show notes. You just said it wrong.
Yeah, it could be that I've not been clear in how I've said it in the past. So the concept I've been talking about the last couple of weeks is accelerationism. And yeah, just let it go. Buy more ammo. Every time a politician lies, buy another box of ammo. You'll be like me someday and have a lot of ammo.
Yeah, I don't think I have enough room in my condo.
That's right.
Continue,
right,
Andrew.
Let me read on here.
Yeah.
I went through a lot of topics in the last two podcasts and thought the political effort it would take to right the ship of state, and honestly, there is no fucking way it'll ever get done. We've had it too easy living beside a decent neighbor who has some use for us. I'm pissed about the blockades, but if it puts the boots to Quebec, Toronto, and the East Coast, maybe the glass is half full. Karma is a bitch. I think I'm just going to let it slide, sit back, and enjoy the show and watch it burn. With some divine intervention, maybe a Canadian Pinochet will become Chief of Defense Staff, and it's a shit ton of helicopter rides. As an aside, I spent a considerable amount of time with the OPP True team member who was in the shootout with the fuckers at Ipperwash. That prick George was armed with a handgun and shooting at the cops. After he was sent for a well-deserved dirt nap, and the police withdrew, cottagers hiding nearby witnessed the Indians cleaning up all the brass. I grew up next to a Southern Ontario reserve, and most of them are professional whiners who are just out to milk the system. We used to say, how do you get 40 of them into a telephone booth? Tell them they once owned it. So I wanted to thank Todd for his feedback, and I want to caution Todd against maybe sharing those opinions publicly, because the RCMP does not take kindly to that sort of thing in our new police state.
Well, and I'm not even saying it's the natives. I'm saying anybody, any group of individuals. If you tell them that something belongs to them for generations upon generations, sooner or later, they're going to ask for it back. Like, when I say ask, I mean demand. But I mean, like, I don't even fault them for that at that point, because they've been literally told how often they've been oppressed and how often we've stolen from them. Yeah, I'd be pissed too. Like, you bring a lot of this stuff upon yourself when you're the government, and you do stuff like that. And you pander to the specific groups, and we're not alone in this in Canada. I think lots of other countries do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think you're right, and I'm sorry to have broken this news to Todd. Todd is a frequent writer to the show, and I very much appreciate his emails. And I'm sorry that I've destroyed his worldview with this, but I mean, remember, I used to be a libertarian, and now I'm like, yeah, you know what? I kind of hope the Americans vote for Bernie. Yeah, you know what? Another 4 years for Trudeau? Let's do this. Let's see when the food runs out. Let's see when people can stop heating their homes. This will be fun. I'll be all right. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Keep those blockades a coming. I don't need propane. What about you?
I mean, I would like it, but I mean, I certainly don't need it.
Or
and that's, I mean,
you can just pile up your preps ahead of time, so when something does go south, you're ready for it.
Well, that's kind of the position that I'm in. Is like, yeah, I'm probably not going to make out great if the pipeline or pipelines, if the trains all get shut down forever, like if we just stop having the movement of goods and service in this country, like I'm probably not going to be in a good position, but I'm going to be in a way better position than like 99.9% of people in my province. So I'm really like, I'm okay with that.
And I have guns, so I'll just take it if you don't want to give it.
Well, I mean, like at some point there's not going to be anything left to take, but I plan on being the last guy there, right? That's the.
Oh, we got friends down south. We can also we have legs and we have vehicles and wheels on stuff. Can always move.
No, I'm not planning on going anywhere or doing anything. I'm just going to install myself as the sheriff of the county in which I reside and call it a day. Like,
I'm with that. Yeah,
I'm not that worried about it. I mean, like, let's get some accelerationism. Let's crank those taxes up to 80%.
Yeah,
because every time they do that, I'm a resourceful and inventive person. Every time that they find a new way to tax me, I'm going to find a new loophole to not pay it. We'll just keep playing that game. That's the game that we play now, and I'm getting pretty good at that.
What did we call that? We were just talking about today.
Your tax shelter?
No. What's that word? Malicious compliance.
Malicious compliance. That's right.
That's the one.
The second best compliance.
Exactly. Second, I don't know. I consider it first best, but
I was going to say non-compliance would be the best one.
Well, I mean, how much ammo you got?
Yeah, I may have gotten tripped up on that a couple weeks ago.
Well, I mean, that's kind of my take on it. Is it sucks, but it doesn't suck that bad, and I got enough time that when it gets to really suck, it's still not going to suck that bad for me. It's going to suck really bad for a lot of people, but not for me. Right?
If you want to be like us, listen to the podcast, listen to the Prepper podcast.
Don't listen to the podcast. Go out and do stuff. Yeah, like don't be me. Don't go on the internet and tell people what to do. Go and be smarter than I am, and quietly stockpile your $5,000 worth of propane. Was it $5,000 worth of propane?
Yeah, 5,000. Yeah.
Go and stockpile your $5,000 worth of propane. Go and figure out how to dry your grain without propane.
Go buy
it's
some
probably
land
not going to be a fun experience, but like, at least if you've got that part figured out, okay, so you're currently harvesting, I don't know, $5,000 worth of propane. That's a couple of 10,000 acres worth of grain. So you probably don't need a couple 10,000 acres worth of grain for personal use. So if you can figure out how to get enough food for your family and maybe to like keep your friends or family happy, or like to trade a little bit for something that you can't grow locally, like bring it on. I got guns and ammo. I got food and water. Let's do this thing. So the banks are going to collapse and the interest rate's going to go wonky, whatever. What's the bank going to do? Come and kick me out of my house? With what army? Who are they going to do to enforce that law? Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew. You have to keep paying your mortgage, even though the interest rate is now 38%. Fuck off. What are you going to do? Kick me out? Bring it on.
already have it on good authority for many law enforcement. There's not enough manpower.
Well, there's not. There's not. We've talked about this before.
For normal times. I mean,
yeah.
There's 60,000 police officers in this whole country or something. We've talked about this before.
Something like that. Yeah, they're grossly underfunded and
And you know what?
Undermanned.
For a 1 week ice storm in Toronto, okay, they're all going to keep showing up for work for that. What about for a month where there's no food in grocery stores in Toronto? How many of them are going to keep showing up on the job?
Yeah, and they're not getting any paychecks. They all have families, most of them.
Right, they all have families. They're not getting food. They're not getting paychecks, or maybe they're getting a little bit because they're like deemed as an essential government service or something, and they're getting a little. But like, how many of them are going to stick around for that?
But what does money? Yeah,
Half?
What does money do? What does money do when your family's in trouble? Right, you're going to choose your family.
Right, that's what so how many people are going to stick around and do that? How many people are just going to leave? How many people are going to go and find like some excuse to not be there? Oh, I got to go take care of a sick parent. They're in some other community. I got to go and. Or they're just not going to show up. They're just roll call is just going to get smaller every day, right? What are the government's going to mandate them back to work? The government can't mandate the goddamn teachers to go back to work and we're living under like normal circumstances.
Yes, that's just like what happened with Soviet Russia during their collapse, right? And people stopped getting paid. People stopped showing up.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, they pretend to work or they pretend to pay us and we pretend to work, right? That's
right.
So I mean, sorry, it sucks, but I mean, like, I'm kind of at that point where, like, I'm not getting any younger, I'm not getting any better. Like, I'm getting in better shape. I'm not in the best shape I've ever been in, but I mean, this is the best shape I've been in 10 years. And every day I get older, and I'm not going to get in better shape. Like, there's going to be a plateau where I just can't. So, like, the sooner the better. Right? Like, I mean, every day that we don't have an economic collapse, and every day that we don't run out of natural gas or gasoline or whatever, like, that's another day that I can go buy another thing to put in the pantry. Right? Like, every day that I get my normal paycheck, that's another day that I can stock up on stuff. That's another propane tank to put in the shed. That's another jerry can full of gas to have. It's like, go and talk to your friends, and like, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's different for you guys, but I mean, I work in a white collar, primarily office setting, and like, I'm looked at like the crazy guy with guns, and I'm not the only gun owner in my office, but I'm looked at like the unusual one because of all the like extra stuff that I have. It's not just that I have guns and I go hunting once a year with. It's like, I'm out training.
What do you need that for?
And I'm, we have all these work social channel things on our corporate message program, and people are like talking about their gardens, and I'm like, oh, well, my garden's the biggest and the best, and I do all these things, and it's like, oh, you do all that too, and it's like, well, I did all these, I'm making my own beer, and I'm doing all of this stuff, and it's like, oh, you do that too, and it's like, well, when the zombie apocalypse happens, we're all coming to your house, and it's like, no, you're not, because I'll shoot you. And it's like a funny joke that like,
this is my beer, not yours.
Well, and that's the thing though. But like, it's a funny joke in the office. Is like, oh, when the zombie apocalypse happens, we're all going to go to Andrew's, and it's like, yeah, that's super funny. No, you're not. I'll shoot you. And everybody has a good laugh about it. But like, I'll fucking shoot you.
Seriously,
So
yeah.
The only person that's getting my guns is like other family members, so that we can protect the fort and not touch my food. Because I will fucking shoot you in the face.
Like, so like, I mean, I have enough food for me and my family. I have enough water for a bit for me and my family. Like, but I mean, I'm better armed than almost everybody in the city in which I reside.
Yeah, you live in a pretty snowflakey city. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, but there's some other competent shooters in my neck of the woods.
Mm.
But I know who they all are, and they all know who I am, and we all get along. So I don't foresee it being a huge problem.
Yeah, there'll be a simple sign that says "Stay off my lawn," and they'll know to stay away.
I don't even think it'll be like that. I just like, I could be in better shape. I could have more stuff, but like, every day is also a day that I get a little bit older and a little bit slower.
But you also get a little wiser.
Right, but like, eventually there's going to be that trade-off.
Yeah.
So if we're going to do this,
but you have kids who are also going to know how to shoot. So
well, and that's the other part of this is I don't want my kid to have to grow up and go through this stuff. So like, the sooner we can get this over with, the better.
It's true. It's true.
Which, it sucks, but it's kind of the way it is right now. And in terms of some of the other stuff, I don't think we're getting a Pinochet.
Yeah, I wish.
The deputy, deputy? No, it's not deputy. The vice chief of staff. So Vance has been the chief of staff since 2015. Vice Admiral Norman, that was in the news the last year, that got relieved of his duty, was previously the vice chief defense staff. I don't know anything about the new guy, but I mean, it's safe to assume that he's some other like career bureaucrat, politician type senior officer.
Liberal appointee.
So
Full military.
yeah, I don't think that we're going to get a Canadian Pinochet. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like, I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
Like, I don't see a military coup being a realistic event in our country.
No, never.
Well, the military's not that big, and the military's not that well funded or motivated.
Well, yeah, I just say that there's no motivation there. There's not enough caring, I'd say. Things would have to be really, really bad. Like Trudeau would have to be like, killing people in the streets kind of thing for something like that to happen. Like,
yeah, and I mean, maybe there's like a regimental commander, like maybe there's like somebody that's like a, senior colonel level kind of a person, or I don't know, maybe somebody that's got.
Like you said, it would have to be something. There would have to be something like extremely bad going on for the military to ever step in.
And that's what I mean. Like, I don't see anyone in the general staff, anybody like that works for the defense staff, like being in a position where they're going to be like, yeah, you know what? A military coup sounds like a great idea for Canada. I don't see the.
At the same time, that's the only one thing that I don't see full-blown communism taking over, because I don't see the military backing such a move. But hard to say.
It's not so much backing, it's just allowing it to happen.
Yeah, that too. Hard to say. Very hard to say. I know there's a lot of great people in the armed forces, but
Like the military in Venezuela did not allow or did not help communism come into place. They just watched it happen.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of the thing is like it's a step removed from the rest of society. Like the military is its own entity. The military runs under its own system of laws and regulations. The military does its own things, and for the most part, our military is isolated from the rest of our civilian population because we put our military installations in places where people don't live.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, the military people are only around other military people doing the job they get paid to do, and most of them, it's just a job. They show up, they punch the clock, they do what they get told to do, and they go home.
Yeah, they don't overthink it. Trust me.
Well, I mean, some of them, like the exceptions, I'm sure, but I mean, again, to get like a Pinochet level coup d'etat, I don't think is going to be a thing that we see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. I can think of a couple of senior officers that I know that like
would totally
have commands of. Well, I know a fellow that's in command of an infantry regiment that I could like see, but also I could outshoot everyone in his infantry regiment. So, not sure what their odds are.
They will enforce the law by volume of fire.
Well, and maybe that's what it is. Is maybe we get like an Oka crisis where the military gets called in to just put things down, and they go along with it and do it. I don't know. Do you guys have anything else for Todd or anything else that I've overlooked?
We appreciate you, Todd.
I know, sad Ian.
Yeah, no Pinochet this today.
The trick, Ian, is just work out more, shoot more, and embrace the coming collapse.
On it.
I've been embracing the collapse now. Ever since we started talking, like, since you've been sort of like coming down this road, I guess since the last election, I've sort of been like of that frame of mind as well. It's just like, oh, this could be fun. This could be fun.
Well, and that's the thing.
I mean,
yeah, all right. Tax me at 80%. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah. Why not? Fuck it.
Tax me at 100%. I don't like. Watch me just stop using money. Like, I don't care. I will find some other way to get the things I want done. We'll just find other loopholes. I don't care. What are they gonna? Oh, you can't grow a garden anymore. Who's gonna stop me? You and literally what army? You gonna do? You're gonna come around to my neighborhood and you're gonna like rip up my vegetable garden?
I was gonna say you're gonna rip them up. Like, you're gonna do that? Guarantee you're not.
Like, I don't know. Let's do the TACOM promo and get this wrapped up here. TACOM Canada International Center, Mississauga, September 11 to 13. The Canadian Pro Gun Podcasters Network will be in attendance at TACOM 2020. Your favorite podcasters do not correct the spelling on the ad read. That is the way that it came from TACOM. It says podcasters.
It's making my OCD twitch, okay?
Podcasters will be on hand throughout the show, so make sure you stop by the booth and
with a Z,
meet your favorite and pick up some swag. You can see the details at the show. Go to the website, www.tacomcanada.com, and if you're going to buy tickets, make sure you use our affiliate link in the show note. We get $1. That $1 helps fund Ian traveling all the way from BC to Mississauga. Also, I think Ian is either really sad or really frozen.
Yeah, he's definitely frozen.
Okay. Sad Ian is frozen. Let's start with you, Dave. We'll see if we get Ian back here. Dave, where can everybody find you on the internet?
Find me on the grams at same as my screen name, Diesel6223. Give me a follow, give me a like. And then if you want to come shoot some long range stuff up at Borden, shoot me an email at oraprecision@gmail.com.
All right. Ian is unfrozen, I think.
We got
and
two
frozen
Ians
Ian
now.
is still here.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think Marty's pigeons came into attack there for a second.
All right. Ian, where can everybody find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can reach me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. And you can also find me recording Canadian Prepper Podcast every Sunday evening at the same time, same bat channel as this place.
All right. I think I'm going to try and join you guys next week and talk about the, you're doing $500 preps next week?
Yeah, so next week is So if you had $500 to spend, what would you
Yeah.
do?
All right.
right.
Robot Ian is. All right, we're gonna wrap that up next week.
He's in full attack mode from those pigeons.
Yeah.
From starting from scratch as a prepper. So
He's still going.
I'm gonna talk over him. $500 starting from scratch as a prepper. What do you get? That's what the show is about. Be there.
Yeah, so that sounds like a fun
Boom.
little mental exercise. I'm gonna try and participate on their podcast for that. If you've listened to our podcast this long, you deserve a discount code. Go to www.ragnaroktactical.ca and use the discount code Patriot at checkout. You'll save yourself some money. And I want to thank a couple of people that placed orders this week and use the discount code Patriot. You'll notice that your items got shipped out, and, well, actually, by the time you hear this, you should have your order.
You just say what Marty says for your internet to work properly.
Motherfucker!
Yeah.
Look at that. Worked great.
Yeah, there we go.
And we're getting kicked off the internet. No, not really. That's not the thing that's going to kick us off the internet. There's other things. We value your opinion about those things. Please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email the show feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Let us know what you think. And of course, I have to apologize to Rod Giltaca. The internet in BC is very bad, so we could only stand to have one person on tonight.
You're clearly not taxing enough.
And Ian is still frozen. So apologies to Rod Giltaca.
He's happy now.
Sad Ian is happy now. And for all of our listeners out there in podcast land, I would like to remind you that you are the true North, strong and free. I guess Ian's just giving up.
Just fucking took a shit right at the end there.
I don't think I can end the broadcast. It won't let me.